and welcome to IntentioKnit. Today I am doing the Yarn Low Buy 2026 end of month of February. It's a bit later in the month than I was hoping to film this, I'm sorry about that, but let's just get right into it. In February I actually did buy yarn, and this is my second monthly check-in video, so if you haven't watched the first one for January yet, I will link it down below. So how did February go? I finished a couple of big projects in February. I finished a sweater and a big blanket project. I am going to talk more about that in my upcoming knitting podcast that should be released about 1 week after this video. That was two very big projects. The sweater is the Cumulus T but sweater version, and that only used about 264 grams of yarn, which was not much at all. And then I finished my solid granny square blanket, which used up a lot of yarn. It was such a fun project, but it got really heavy at the end, so I'm looking forward to using that. I will say I haven't blocked and completely finished these off yet, but they will be done very soon. I've just been a bit slow on the finishing details, but if you want more details, then please watch my next knitting podcast. And during February I also finished a pair of socks, so 3 finished projects, and I am only counting my finished projects for these end of month numbers. I'm not counting started projects or anything that's going over several months. It's just what's easiest for me, and I think that makes sense. This blanket project I actually started back in November, so it took about 4 months to fully finish. I had a couple of breaks, I made a couple of things in between, and that's just how it goes. But I'm very happy that it's finally finished. So I have 3 finished projects in February that I can count for my how much have I knit and crocheted in a month, and I'll get to the numbers very soon. And then in February I actually did buy yarn. I finished the sweater, the Cumulus T sweater, and I had planned on buying yarn for a new sweater. I really wanted to do another petite knit sweater. This would be my second one, and I wanted to do the Olga one, but in one color. I think the 2-colored one is so beautiful, especially the black and white. I might do that sometime in the future. I will be inserting some pictures here. This is the Drops Cotton Merino, which is 50-50 cotton and merino wool. I was very intentional about the yarn here because a lot of my sweaters and cardigans have been made in pure wool or nearly pure wool, and that means that I can only wear these items during winter. And I'm working on my everyday wardrobe, and especially for every new sweater or cardigan I need to be very intentional about what materials I actually use. So I chose the Drops Cotton Merino. I hadn't used it before, but I was very happy with it. I am almost finished with the sweater now, but I'm filming this in March. But anyway, I really loved this bright yellow color. I wanted some more color in my wardrobe, and I didn't currently have any yellow actually, that's not pure wool. So I'm really hoping that this sweater will hold up very well during all year round. Maybe not during summer, but spring is maybe coming. It's a super gloomy day today. I am very happy with the color. I'm happy with how quick this project worked up. I did buy the yarn, and it is a green-lit purchase from my low buy rules. I will link the video to my rules if you haven't seen that. But it means that I can buy new yarn in a few circumstances, and the green one, or most allowed one in my opinion, is when I need more yarn or new yarn for a project that I'm starting immediately. So I got the yarn and I immediately started the sweater, so everything good there. I did get more yarn that I thought I needed, which is something I will almost always do. I do knit a bit tight, so I know that I often use a little bit more, and there is few things that frustrates me more in the knitting and crochet world than having just a bit too little yarn. And where I live, we have a 2-month return policy for yarn, so as long as I finish it pretty quickly, I can return the yarn. So I bought 700 grams for this project, which is more than I needed. I have almost finished it and I'm very happy with it, and it has followed my rules. So 700 grams of sweater yarn in. And then I had 2 instances of buying sock yarn. Now, buying sock yarn is on my yellow list for the year because I do have quite a bit of sock yarn left, enough to maybe 15 pairs of socks or so. But I saw this here color, I'll insert a picture. This is Sun's Perfect, which is for me a true and tested yarn. It's a DK weight and I really loved this sort of deep berry color, and I really wanted to make a pair for myself. And that is the sock pair that I finished in February. I got the yarn and I immediately started it and I finished it. That didn't go into my stash at all. And that was in the beginning of the month. And then at the end of February, I think it actually was the last day of February, I went into the yarn store to look for something else. And I actually found the same yarn, Sun's Perfect, and I decided that a pair of beige ones would also be very good. I mostly have very colorful socks and I really love that, but sometimes I could use some simplicity, so I decided to get a pair. Now, I haven't cast these on yet. It's been a week or so since I bought it because I needed the needles from another project to start this. I'll be starting them soon. So yeah, that's 200 grams of sock yarn that I bought this month in February, which is yellow list, so it's something I shouldn't do much of. But I think that I supported a local small business and I am planning on making them very fast. They're not even going to be living on my shelf, I just have it in my little things to knit or knitting from right now stash. So they'll be done very soon, hopefully during March. So in total I actually bought 900 grams of yarn in February, 1 sweater worth and 2 pair of socks worth. That's fine, I'm completely fine by that, and it's something that will be happening as I continue to buy new yarn for new bigger projects. But I also started a few projects using my stash yarn. Now, I haven't finished those, but there are a few bigger projects that I'm currently working on in March. I haven't only been using new yarn, and as you saw from my finishing this blanket and the sweater, I have finished a good amount this month. I also returned a lot of yarn this month. I had yarn left over from my blanket project. When I bought the yarn, I wasn't completely sure how much yarn I needed, how big I wanted it. It ended up being a bit smaller than I could have made it, but I just didn't see the point in making it the absolute biggest size possible. It ended up being, I think, just around queen size bed-ish. I'll have to do the final measurements after blocking it. But I didn't see the point in doing it bigger. It's meant to be a 1-person blanket. But I did manage to return the yarn, so I returned 850 grams of yarn to the yarn store, and using that yarn and that store credit was what got me most of the yarn for the Olga sweater. I only paid for 1.5 skeins. So that was really nice, and making sure that my stash isn't growing. I'm actually delivering the yarn I don't need back, and I'm making sure to get new yarn that I'm actually needing right now. And I'm very happy about that. I made the return window just barely, but it happened, so I delivered back a good amount of yarn as well. Let's get to the numbers. I have tweaked the sort of Excel sheet a little bit since last video. I decided that I'm not going to try to differentiate between, leftover stash from, open skeins and yarn from my shelf that hasn't been opened yet. That's going to be a lot of upkeep, especially since when I finish something that there will most often be leftover yarn, and I don't want to add and subtract and all of that. So I only have 2 yarn use categories, or actually 3. I now have the new yarn in, so that means I bought the yarn this year in 2026. I have the from stash, which is from my leftover stash and my new yarn stash, but it hasn't been bought this year. And then I have a small donation category where I will sometimes pick up some yarn, make something and deliver whatever's left back. The two main categories is new yarn in and it's did I use yarn from my stash. I hope that makes sense. I will pop up the new Excel sheets now. I also might show you both January and February here since I did switch so that it's a bit more clear. So I'm going to show you both January and February here. So this is my monthly yarn log. I'm only going to read you the February numbers, but you can see the January ones beside it. So in February, I used up 93 grams of from new yarn. That was the pair of socks, the perfect berry color socks. I used most of that up. Then I have the from stash yarn. This is the main portion from that I used up in February. I used up 2,106 grams. Here a little bit was from the sweater, but most of this was from the big blankets. I didn't use any donation yarn this month. Then for returns, I have a return category just to keep my total stash amount as accurate as possible. I returned 850 grams of yarn to the store in February, and that was all of the leftover blanket yarn that I haven't opened and started to use. I didn't declutter or give any yarn away, and I didn't have any donation yarn to give back since I hadn't worked on any donation projects. And then new yarn in this month. This was 900 grams. This was for the sweater, 700 grams there, and then 200 grams for two pair of socks. And then I like to keep track of how much have I knit and crocheted this month. This is finished projects only. This month I knit and crocheted 2,199 grams. This is a high amount. This is, as long as I have kept up, I think there's only a few months where I will go over 2,000 grams, which is great. This is sort of the point of keeping track over time on those bigger projects, like that blanket, that's most of this. And then the total amount of yarn out. This is returns, it's donation yarn given back, and it's declutter. That was 850 grams this month out. So in total, my yarn stash as of the end of February is 13,059 grams of yarn. And that is a good amount down from January. I did note a couple of things here. So that is 2,149 grams from the end of January, which is great, and it is 2,383 grams down since the start of 2026. I just thought it would be fun to see that even though I have bought new yarn for a new project, I have also reduced my total amount of stash, which is my overall big goal for 2026. So yeah, that is that. I have lowered my stash amount. I have bought some new yarn in my green and yellow categories. I am pretty happy with how February went. I finished some big projects. I started some new bigger projects. I will be filming my knitting podcast very soon, and that will be up about a week after this video. Let me know, are you doing a stash down? How's it going? I've had a couple people reach out telling me they're also doing a stash down, which I think is so fun. Please let me know if you're also doing one. I think it's so fun to cheer each other on. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in March with my March update, hopefully a little bit earlier in the month than this time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.